Spanning into nearly 800 pages, Akshay Mukul's writer, rebel, soldier, lover, The Many Lives of Agya is an achievement of sorts for several reasons. Of the several, let me recount the main three that I feel. Also, I must say that whatever I have written and going to speak is this is reading in front of the text. This is what I felt of the text as a reader. It may not be the authorial intended meaning. Okay, so this is that. Uh, Agya, as Mukul rightly points out, was the Tagore of the Hindi world. No other writer since Premchand had an impact on the world of Hindi literature as Agya. Yet his reception was unlike that of Tagore. While the Bengali public sphere, cutting across ideologies, has elevated Tagore to a demigod status, the same cannot be said about Agya. His reception remained mired in controversies and criticisms throughout his career and after. This was partly, if not wholly, a result of the sectarian or vibrant, as one reads it, nature of the Hindi reading public, and partly owing to Agya's own making of being a vociferous iconoclast of the established trends in Hindi literature. To bring into the light the various facets of Agya's long, iterative, colorful, personal and public life with utmost sincerity is an Achilles task that Mukul has achieved with flying colors. The second relates to the range of sources and materials referred to in the book. Mukul's craft, this is something that Poonam also pointed out, Mukul's craft and labor will put even the best trained historians to shame. This can easily be teased out looking at the lengthy notes which nearly runs into 200 pages, almost a fourth of the book, together with the private papers which Mukul's bring to the light for the first time. What makes the whole endeavor, to my mind, enriching is the command that the author himself has on the deeper subtextual meaning of Agya's novels and poems. The resultant mix of materials and meanings lends themselves to a biography which itself reads like a great work of art. Third, qualitatively speaking, the book, and this is the point that I thought stands out, the book sets the gold standard of biography writing in India. Biography writing generally, and more so in India, is fraught with the problem of eulogizing the personality or the subject at hand. In attempting to justify the relevance of the subject, biographers often fall back on implotment structures of fantasy writing, using tropes like the chosen one, hero's journey, epic battle, the classic villain, etc., to weave the facts and narratives. This is true for biographies across the spectrum, be it Vikram Sampath Savarkar, Vinay Sitapati's Jugalbandi, or even Akash Singh Rathaur's Ambedkar. What this ends up doing is elevating the persona of the subject being studied to a level where he is no more human-like. The deification of the subject does two things. One, it simplifies the overall narrative. Once the tropical strategy has been chosen, contrarian and conflictual facts can be overlooked to harmonize the overall life history. Two, it elevates the subject to a level where it now lies beyond the realm of our mundane existence and its moral or judgmental imperatives. The biographer, becoming the possessed spokesperson of the studied subject, is a concomitant result of using such an implotment strategy. While all standard biographies use extensive facts and figures to justify their claims, the tropical strategy of superhumanism morphs these facts and histories to produce an effect which is dangerously close to hagiographies. The audience then is reduced here to a passive spectator who has much to learn from the doings of these great men. In contrast, the framing of Mukul Agya is far more layered. Far more layered and open-ended. It is owing to this complex framing that Agya we get at the end of it is richer than any other preceding biography on him. Or as Trisha said, any other biography in general in India. Right? The complex framing also compels him to use more varied sources and references. This is one of the reasons why the book is bulkier than the usual marketing standards of publishing industry. Let us undertake a small thought experiment to fully appreciate the beauty of Mukul Agya. Take the first four title words which have been used as anchoring devices to weave the multiverse of Agya: writer, rebel, soldier, and lover. Now flip these words with their seeming antonyms: propagandist, collaborator, jingoist, narcissist, womanizer. Such is the complexity and richness of Mukul Sagya that one would not be disappointed to find elements of even these in the book. This only shows the intense investment that the author has put in producing such a broad and rich character arc. A positive externality of such a broad character arc is that we get to see a guy who is as ordinary in his fragilities and emotions as he is extraordinary in his writings. This foregrounding of the ordinariness, fragilities, and weakness of Agya has an aporetic and empathetic effect on the reader. The everyday relatability of these fragilities with ordinary lives we live in is what makes the whole portrayal more humane and inhabitable. Here I agree with Poonam and Trisha that Agya was contradictory and Mukul is at times unable to reconcile his contradictions. But yet I find this is the beauty of this being rather than a limitation is actually the beauty of the book, because our own lives are contradictory. Our own lives are full of, you know, it's irreconcilable, many things in our own lives. And hence this biography resonates. Now, why as students of social science research you should be interested in reading the book? As a student of political studies in India, and more particularly of this center, the major impulse of our research always leads us to delve into bigger macro questions. That's what we are taught and told every time. You weave in your narrative, deal with the macro questions. Now, of the many, there were two macro conceptual frames which book opens up and should be seriously taken up by students of social sciences. That's what I thought. The first relates to the social history of Indian modernity. In trying to reconstruct the world of Agya, Mukul also reconstructs the social milieu of 20th century. What emerges from this reconstruction is a fine textured social history of the times in which Agya lived. To me personally, one facet of that rich social history, and that is very intriguing, something that I don't find it otherwise in social science literature, is the sense of anomie that haunts most of the characters in this biography. Almost all characters in the book, Hirananda, Agya's father, Indumati, Agya's first cousin, with whom he had a romantic relationship, Agya himself, Vatsaraj and Brahmanand, his brothers, suffer from bouts of nervous breakdown and the like. Though causally unestablished, one can easily tease out the deeper social reasons for this. You can peep into the change that the institution of family and wider social relationships were itself undergoing in the early 20th century India. The characters are traumatized of losing all signifiers that acted as anchors of ideal social norms, say women's behavior, marriage, masculinity, caste, or religion. All that was solid was melting into air, and one can very well see the effects it has on the psychological terrain of the characters. One can truly feel and empathize the deep sense of loneliness that pervades all characters in and around Agya. Again, a quintessential feature of modern human condition. To have a grounded portrayal of the social and interpersonal changes that modernity was bringing in is indeed an aspect of the book that will be of much interest to students of social sciences in India. The second major macro frame relates it to being a useful resource to study Indian masculinity. In recuperating the private world of Agya, the, the author gives us a peek into the inert domain of the protagonist. Themes of emotional abandonment, passive aggressiveness, sexual frustration, extractive careerism all emerge out of the exploration that Mukul undertakes. The subtext of it being a study of Indian masculinity is something that can be explored further. To sum it up, I must reiterate, something that I wrote on social media as well, that when I began reading the book, that it is unlike any other biography that I've come across. In a country The feudal academic culture, servility, and uncritical adoration more often than not eats up academic sincerity and courage. Mukul's endeavor is both refreshing and noteworthy. Coming on to limitations, and this is the last bit, there were three issues that I thought could have been given more light in the book. One, while you're true in pointing out that Agya was probably at the receiving end of many inner feuds of the Hindi world, I mean, you are right. You have rightly pointed out how established names felt threatened and humiliated to seek comments from a young Agya. However, would you not agree that he was also the originator of many of those ill trends? What else can we say about giving space to family members and friends in the very first issue that he takes out as the editor of Vishal Bharat? Worth remembering is the reputation that Vishal Bharat enjoyed as a fiercely independent journal. Two, and it's a clarificatory question about how do we ought to read the silences in the archive. You point out instances where letters and other important documents, which may seem inappropriate, are missing, say the exchanges between Agya and Snehalita, second cousin, or Agya and Santosh, first wife. I mean, there is a point where it feels like there was a sexual relationship between protagonist and her cousin Snehalata. However, the critical letters that would establish that were missing. What do you think these letters? Why do you think these letters were expunged from the archive, and how do you read it? That's the second thing. Three, I felt that while in the case of relationships to women, you are forthright and overtly critical of his extractive tendencies. However, I felt the same tenor is toned down when it comes to his flirtations with Hindutva in his last stages of life. I mean, how is his presence in BJP meetings and initiation of his spiritual yatras in tune with his image of being the first and foremost free thinker of the Hindi world? This leads to a larger question that you seem to be posing, though not answering, towards the end of the book. That is, what happens to erstwhile revolutionaries and famous figures when they approach the near end of their life? Along with Agye, you reveal quite forthrightly, and this was something I was amazed by it, that the topsy-turvy that M.N. Roy himself undergoes, I mean, his last wish was to visit Haridwar for Kumbh Mela, or for that matter, P.C. Joshi, whom I am told that he retired to the hills to open an ashram. This was one of the many queries that kept returning to me after reading the book. Thank you.